We're back
We're back again.
and discussing law number 10
That's right.
of the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. And law 10 says that it says infection. Avoid the unhappy and the unlucky. You can die from someone else's misery. Emotional states are as infectious as diseases. You may feel you are helping the drowning man, but you are only precipitating your own disaster. The unfortunate sometimes draw misfortune on themselves. They will also draw it on you.
Yeah.
Associate with the happy and fortunate instead. So, Law 10, I'll open up with something that happened to me. This was a summer school.
Okay.
I was probably like somewhere around 10 years old, let's say. And it was a swimming class in the summer, and we would all be swimming in the pool and everything. And I remember one time there was this kid that was towards the middle of the pool, and he was struggling with the water, and he was drowning.
Oh, really?
And I was at the edge of the pool, and this was on the deeper side at a high school. And so I went to go help him. And so as I went towards him, he grabbed my head and he pushed me underwater to keep himself breathing above the water. And I'm there now drowning after trying to go help him and save him. Now I'm underwater. And eventually, I honestly don't remember if the teacher pulled us out or how we ended up being okay. And, we got out of there, thank God. But it's exactly what Robert Greene is saying. And he actually uses the example, literal example of a drowning man. He says, you may feel you're helping the drowning man, but you are only precipitating your own disaster. And that's exactly what happened to me. And I learned my lesson there. Because, first off, I wasn't that great of a swimmer. And I'm not a lifeguard or anything. But I was trying to go help him. But it's survival at that point.
Right.
And that person is going to do whatever it takes for them to survive. And that meant pushing me underwater to try and get above water.
Very interesting.
But how have you seen Law 10? How have you used this law or
Well,
not?
let me say something about your example. Supposedly, okay, and we are no experts, but what you're supposed to do, you swim up to the person, and when you're like 5 feet away, you dive. Okay, you go under the water, and then you grab his legs in a way that you can flip him around, him or her. So you go like this, and then you go up their back, and it seems a little cruel, but you stick your hand underneath the hairline, come up, and pull the hair back. And that will get them in a somewhat of a floating position, and then you can help them swim away on your side. So, yeah, you never confront a person that's drowning or is struggling in the water, because that's exactly what they're going to do to you. They're going to pull you down because they're afraid. They're not thinking straight.
Right.
2 + 2 is not 4 at that moment. Otherwise, they would realize I've got help coming.
Right.
This person means well. They're coming to help me. But
It's just survival.
It's just survival, and they're not thinking straight,
Correct.
So, but you're supposed to dive.
Well, you have experience because you were...
I took that, scuba diving, and I took a lifeguard class, actually.
So you have that. Yeah, I did.
And even when you do that, you have to be very careful, because they'll turn on you. That's why I have no mercy when we were doing the practicing. You gotta kind of even hurt them a little bit as you're coming up, and you grab tight, because that's gonna get them out of their shock. Now they're gonna feel a little pain in the back and say, oh, what's going on? But then when they see that, because the body will have a tendency to buoy out. Anyway, that's got nothing to do with the law, but I just thought I'd add that in.
Well, somebody goes to help, but if you're trained, you can...
if you're trained. Yeah.
But But yeah, have you seen that in
I
your
have.
experiences? People that pull you down that are infectious.
I have. I had an employee. She was very nice, a very nice lady, but she always had some kind of a drama going on. And, you know, Robert Greene goes on to say in the book that a lot of the times we bring these issues and problems onto ourselves because of the decisions that we make, you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes we bring them onto ourselves because the people we hang out with, okay? So, and this young lady always had issues. And the problem that was happening was that she was sharing it with the rest of the staff. And so everybody was getting involved in the issue and, oh, I'm so sorry for you and this and that. And, no work was getting done. And so, unfortunately, she got her act together a little bit, and then, but it was always something. We had to let her go, unfortunately. She realized it. It wasn't like a really, really. We had to let her go, and when you let go of someone, when you fire somebody, it's not pleasant at all. Okay, it's very unpleasant for both parties. For me, it's the hardest thing to do, and I'm sure that for any other business owner also. But we had to let her go because it was just not working out. It was infectious, and Robert Greene is right. In the old days, when I was much younger, I have a lot of sympathy, so I would try to help somehow. But the problem is that the help has to come first as a realization from inside. You need help, you want help, and you're gonna go look for help.
Mm-hmm.
If the person is not willing,
Yeah.
there's nothing you can do, absolutely nothing. And so it's
Well, we've come, I think, as you have more experience with people, you're able to read people a little better. We've come across people in a business setting where or any setting, but let's say business, where we're like, whoa, that person is pure problems. And so we have this saying where we run the other way from people like that. You say it all the time.
all the time.
When I see somebody who has all these kinds of issues, they just pull you into their whirlwind of issues, and you can get dragged in, and you want to help, but it ends up affecting you and your family, and
Oh yeah.
you have to be able to say, you know what, that's not something that I'm gonna partake in. I'm gonna go the other way. Like customers, a lot of times in business, you have a customer or a client. That client could be extremely problematic.
Oh yeah.
And you've been able to turn them away. We've turned away problematic clients or people that it it's not gonna lead to anything. It's gonna
Productive.
No, it's gonna
No.
be a headache.
It is. There's an old saying out there, and the first time I heard it, which was many, many years ago, I really took it to heart. And it's, 10% of your customers, okay, are going to give you, excuse me, how does that go?
Yeah,
Yeah.
10%, 90% of your headaches.
90% of your headaches. So 10% of your customers are going to give you 90% of your headaches. So if you're able to identify the 10%, because most of the people are mostly agreeable, okay? Of course, if there's an injustice that has happened in business, a transaction, a misread of a contract. I was talking to a gentleman today where he was purchasing a home. This is a few years back, and they had given him, there was a contingency period. And he thought, because the contract wasn't explained to him, that at the end of the contingency period, he could begin the process of purchase or qualifying. But that wasn't the case. At the end of the contingency period, that was the end of everything. And he stood to lose the property that he was buying
Mm.
And so that was, let's just say, it could be misunderstanding on both sides, because this happened 19 years ago, 16 years ago. But let's say a misinterpretation of the contract or not being explained properly. So why do I bring it up? This gentleman is the nicest man on earth. But yet, when it came to that point where he was going to lose the property, his wife was extremely upset. The stress level went through the roof. And I just talked to him this morning, and this was a story he was telling me. He threatened to sue.
Mm.
And he became a very ugly person.
Oh, wow.
Very ugly person to that realtor and to that real estate company. And the stress levels for everybody went through the roof. So, you just have to be very, very careful. But you can spot them. You can spot these people that they make, what do they say? Out of a molehill, a mountain, or they make out of a little thing, they make a huge,
Big deal.
big deal.
Yeah.
It's not worth it, guys.
Yeah. No, and those people potentially will remain that way, or one day get help and figure out their situation.
Right.
But it's even like the idea of the Good Samaritan. There was a story, I don't remember, one of a Good Samaritan that ends up getting hurt by trying to help, even though, let's say, in the Bible and different religions say you should help your brother, your fellow sister. And so that's why it's a little bit conflicting for me, because I I respect a lot what Robert Greene has to say, but again, I go back to, this is purely a power move. He's not talking about being a good person. He's not talking about living life a certain way. Like, we yesterday we went to the services of our good friend, who passed away, and all the people there, you could feel the love, and he was just a good man to so many people, right?
Right.
And Robert Greene is not talking about living a good life. To me, this is purely a power play, which is what we've talked about in the past. And he's saying, look, you avoid the unhappy and the unlucky. We know some people who are extremely lucky people, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what it is. They're just extremely lucky in life. And so we want to hang around there. He's saying associate with the happy and the fortunate. Why are lucky people, what is it about people that they're lucky? From your experience, what do you think it is? Is there something that they are on a different wave, a different frequency? What do you think of that?
I think so.
Yeah?
I really do. I think that, and it starts with your morning, when you get out of bed. Okay? I've read that what you're supposed to do to have a tremendous day is to get up and immediately give thanks that you were able to open your eyes and that you are able to spring out of bed. There's one guy that says, I don't get off of my bed. I spring off my bed because I'm so excited that I'm up and my eyes are open and I'm breathing. That's already, a tremendous gift.
Yeah.
And so when you look at it that way, you're coming from a place of being extremely grateful. And then that, I really believe that's like a kinetic energy. That's an energy that you give out. And the same energy you give out, you're going to bring forward to you and your family and the people around you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I've walked marketing. I've gone marketing and walked into a room where the room is kind of sober and not doing anything, okay?
Yeah.
And then somebody all of a sudden comes into that room, super hyper, super high-pitched, tremendous,
energy.
beautiful energy. And, it has a tendency to change more than half the room. More than half the room.
Yeah.
Because people gravitate to the people that are thinking positively. I think things just go better.
Yeah. But some people are lucky.
Some people are very lucky.
But then the other side is like, oh, luck is when preparation meets opportunity, right? But there's something else, I think, to it that maybe we don't completely understand.
Potentially, you know.
You know?
Yeah, oh, there's a lot of things that we don't
Because
understand.
chance.
Yeah.
You happen to be in the same room at the same time of somebody, and you get an opportunity of a lifetime. You also have to work for it, and you have to show up, and but sometimes things happen. Have you ever had a situation like that, or opportunity, a chance happened that you got very lucky, that you can think of? I'm trying to think. Definitely hanging around positive people and good energy has helped me. I have worked with different office settings, and I remember walking into some offices, and the staff at the office was gloomy. Even it felt like the lights were dimmed, and they didn't want light, they didn't want music, they didn't want too much action, they didn't want customers walking
No,
in.
I gotta get out of there. I have to
Yeah,
get out.
and then I would walk into some where bright light, lots of windows. People were their posture was better. They were more preppy.
Enthusiastic.
They're pumped with coffee or whatever. But you that office was a much high producing office
Of course.
in sales than the
Yeah.
other ones, and it's the energy because that also conveys on the phone.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I took a training one time many moons ago, and the gentleman would tell me, look, before you pick up the phone, when the phone rings, before you pick up the phone, smile. And I remember people asking, why am I going to smile? No, it's the phone. Nobody's going to see me.
Yeah.
You know? Why do I have to smile? And the answer that was provided was because that changes your entire mood, and your body language has a lot to do with your mental psychology. You know, the phone rings, put a big old smile on your face and say, hello, may I help you? And you say the name of whatever company you represent.
Yeah.
But you say it with a smile. And you're pumped because you're already getting geared to, and even the tone of voice is
Super important.
Yeah, super important.
Now, there are some instances in business and in different settings. Let's say you want to buy a property, and that realtor that's representing, or the seller, is one of these infectious people, unhappy and unlucky, yet, or they're a manager, and you can't necessarily run the other way.
Right.
How do you maneuver with
Okay,
people
well,
like that?
I've come to. Just recently, we came across someone that was completely dry. Completely very dry. All business. And it'll turn you away. It's when you can't walk away from something like that, you got to come to terms. Do you want to continue in that company? And if you do, then you need to adjust, okay, and put up with the pain. You know, some people need a paycheck. Some people need to work for a living. And if you can't find another replacement job, then you got to do whatever you got to do. Like they say,
deal with those people.
my 6-year-old grandson the other day told me, you got to do what you got to do, right? Right, are we? Yeah, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
So you got to do what you have to do, okay?
Yeah.
But look, the other day we went to see a property. The gentleman was very dry. Nice guy. Nothing negative to say about that man. He's a nice man. But he has so many rules, so many restrictions. And his tone of voice was very monotone. And the way he delivered the man. We walked out of there. Beautiful place. I don't want to rent it. I really can't send anybody there to rent it.
Yeah.
Because he potentially...
He was problematic.
He was a problematic...
He was infectious to a certain degree. You know, it's interesting because someone...
And they don't know it, by the way.
You know,
a lot of them don't know.
Yeah.
You know?
They maybe don't realize it.
They just don't realize.
I have a lot of respect for a close family member who recently was in a situation that they were working for a company, doing very, very well there, and they were no longer happy there because certain situations that were occurring there. However, it wasn't an immediate like, oh, I'm leaving and I'm gonna go. They positioned themselves really well in that company, began to put out feelers with other companies, ended up leaving that company and ended up at another company doing very, very well, left in good terms. But at the end of the day, the reason they were leaving is because they were unhappy. There was stuff going on there, uh, from a work standpoint, that
Uh-huh.
they weren't enjoying. They weren't, and that pain they had to put up with for a certain amount of time.
You gotta
I think
do
it was
what you
like
got.
4 months or something that
Oh
they
yeah.
still had to.
Well,
But eventually they left, and that's what you're saying. And I've heard Jordan Peterson say that put yourself in a position where you can eventually leave. You're not there forever. You're not stuck at that forever. However, you do have to endure it for a certain amount of time, right? Because
correct. And then what happens is that some people say, well, that's easier said than done. And you guys are saying that, but have you ever practiced that or whatever? I've been in situations where it's been very difficult to work for my boss,
yeah,
prior to starting my businesses. Um, but one of the keys that I've heard Jordan Peterson talk about is you can stay there for the moment. Build yourself a goal of an exit somewhere down the line.
right.
What is going to get you to that exit? And according to Peterson, is you need to acquire new skills.
It's logical.
It's logical. You need new skills because if you don't get new skills, you're going to remain in that position, not only in that company, but potentially in another company. So, what do? You're stuck. How do you unstuck yourself? The way you unstuck yourself is by looking around for a second, take a break, do something different, check things out, and then within the realm of what you're good at, acquire new skills
Yeah.
that make you more desirable than even, so it's just moving from that point. So you might even go to another department within the same company, and
Right.
that department may be totally different than where you got stuck on,
Mm-hmm.
Or you look outside, like our family friend, I know who you're talking about,
Yeah.
I think, and that person positioned herself
And
in-
left.
exactly.
And I've been in a position where I was working for a gentleman, which was an extremely uh, high performing gentleman in his business. And their spouse was one of these characters. They were an infectious character. And I remember one time I brought a big opportunity, a big deal to them. I brought the lead, and so I wanted to be involved in it, and I wanted to learn, and I wanted to get paid. And she was cutting me out of the deal and saying, "Oh, no, it's this way, and this is." And I remember one time we had an altercation over the phone. I must have been 23 or 22 years old, somewhere around there.
Uh-huh.
And I remember she was so ugly with me on the phone. I remember hanging up and looking at my hands, and I'm 22 years old, and they were shaking.
Wow.
So I imagine she got my blood pressure through the roof. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm 22. I shouldn't be having this issue.
So you hung up the phone with her, and then you look at your hand and you're shaking.
She had gotten to me so bad.
Wow.
And there's been a few instances I remember where that's happened to me, where I hang up and the person got to me. They got to me. I ended up leaving them, as you know,
Uh-huh.
because of her. And it was a mutually beneficial relationship. I was performing on, for him. I was making them money. I was making money with them. But because of her, I had to find another place, and so I left. And those people, you can't change them. They're set in their ways. In this situation, I wanted to learn, so I would put up with the way they were because I thought, well, I gotta learn. It reminds me of like that movie where they're like The Devil Wears Prada. These different movies where we have a friend that worked in Universal Pictures,
Mm-hmm.
His daughter worked in Universal Pictures, and for one of these head people that was like very mean to them, you know, and didn't treat them right. And those are the people that eventually you gotta leave.
Yeah, you just have to do something and, you know, develop a plan of action, an exit strategy somehow.
Because they'll make you unhappy.
Oh, oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
yeah.
They'll
And-
get you sick. You'll get sick, you know?
yeah.
If they get to you enough where it affects you, your blood pressure and this and that, eventually you end up getting sick.
Yes.
You
Oh
know?
yeah.
It's what they call, you know, that toxic environment that you need
And
to pull yourself away from it, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in terms of gaining power, as Robert Greene is, that's what the law is, the 48 laws of power. You can't be someone like that. The way he's saying it is to gain power, you have to be somebody who's attracting good energy, good things, so you can build a team, so you can grow, so people can promote you, trust you, etc. So, the opposite of this is gravitate towards people that will uplift you,
Right.
and it happens. That's another thing that happens, and the lucky, and you start partaking in that. And so I agree. I think it's a solid law. I think
It
law
is.
number 10, it's good. I think, in many things in life.
It
you
is.
apply.
It is. I mean, you know, it. We had a saying recently that if a clown comes to a palace, you know, um, the clown does not turn into a king, but on the contrary, the palace turns into a circus. And then they say, be careful who you bring into your business or your family life, because it only takes one clown to take down and destroy everything that you've built. And I think that's also part of this. You bring somebody that is negative. In fact, Robert Greene is a consultant to a few high-powered companies, Fortune 500, and he says that a lot of the issues that he sees is, an owner brings on a partner, and that partner happens to be
A narcissist or
the worst partner on the face of the planet.
Yeah.
And then there goes the direction of the company, along with the attitude, and there goes revenues,
culture.
and
Yeah.
the culture can change.
Sure.
You have to be very careful, and not only in business but in your personal life,
Yeah.
in everything that you do, actually. You know?
I
In team
agree.
sports is very important.
And the hard part of that is sometimes this infection person is a coworker, a family member, somebody that a friend,
Yeah.
and so you have to figure out in life those situations.
Absolutely.
But he nails it. Robert
Yeah,
Greene
yeah.
nails it.
No, the man is something else. In fact, he was being interviewed the other day, and he was talking about the fact that he puts so much of himself into every book that the last one, or the second to the last book that he wrote, I think it's the last one, he actually had a stroke.
Yeah.
And
I think it was the second to last one. I believe that one was the laws of human nature.
yeah, maybe. But the point is, I've never heard him say a bad word or cuss. And he did there. He said, gosh darn it. I tell myself I'm not going to pour myself into this as much as I had, and yet here I am doing the same thing again. And then on that particular one, he ended up with a stroke that apparently paralyzed half his body. He had to work hard to come back.
Yeah.
And I would see him a little bit when he was returning to interviews. He looked fragile.
He did. He had a cane
looked,
and everything.
Yeah, he looked
and
fragile.
he was even asked, I don't remember if it was by Lewis Howes or who
It was.
Who it was.
It was.
He was asked, if you could do it again, would you still do it? And he says that he would, to leave that piece of
that golden
material.
nugget for society.
Yeah. He's like, to leave this for society, he would do it again, even though it cost him his health.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's fully recovered completely on that. I see him out there; he's still out there, but
He's a little fragile.
he looks definitely like it's beat him up.
Yeah. God willing, he can recover from that.
He
He's an
doesn't do
amazing
it-
human being.
Yeah, you can tell it's not done for money.
Right.
You can tell he's willing to put himself through that, where he goes through 16 hours of writing, locks himself up in a room, all that a day, and for long periods of time and doesn't leave. You know, that's because you want to leave your footprint and maybe betterment for society.
Right.
There's a bigger reason.
Yeah, he's admirable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
All right. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.